So, good morning, colleagues. Can I ask you to take your seats, please? Tomorrow there will be no coffee, no cookies outside. It's true. Tomorrow we don't have the session. The conference will start. And no coffee break, exactly, Gerard. So today, in the morning, we will devote our time to environmental performance reviews between 10 and 1 p.m. We will peer review the environmental performance of Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Kyrgyzstan. And we will also consider for adoption the extension of the mandate of the expert group on EPRs. And I have the chair of the EPR expert group sitting here next to me. And we will also consider recent and planned activities under the EPR program. We will start with the second EPR of Armenia. And we will have as speakers Ms. Rosanna Grigorian, Head of International Cooperation Department from the Ministry of Environment of Armenia. We will also have as speakers Mr. Arhiliv from Estonia, the chair of the EPR expert group, and also the secretary to the expert group on EPRs that you all know, Antoine Nunes, who is also sitting at the podium. So the recommendations of the second EPR of Armenia were finalized by the expert group on EPRs, together with, of course, the delegation of Armenia. And you can read those in information paper number 15. I will now invite Ms. Rosanna Grigorian to present the key achievements to date and main challenges encountered by the country in advancing the environmental agenda for sustainable development within the substantive framework of the second EPR. You have 10 minutes and you will speak from the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, distinguished delegates, it's my honor to present today the key achievements to date and main challenges in advancing environmental agenda for sustainable development within the substantive framework of the second EPR of Armenia. Before starting my presentation, first and foremost, I would like to extend my delegation's appreciation and heartfelt thankfulness to the government of Cyprus for its warmest hospitality in organizing this important event. I would also like to thank the UNECE Secretariat under the wise guidance of its chair, Ms. Elizabeth Quintas da Silva, and wish every success in the work of the committee and ministerial conference. Madam Chair, this meeting is convened under the most difficult and grave times for my country, as acts of criminal aggression have been perpetrated against the territorial integrity of the Republic of Armenia by neighboring Azerbaijan in flagrant violation of the international law and the UN Charter. Our neighbor has illegally infiltrated and occupied 44 square kilometers of sovereign land of Armenia in May and November 2021 and another 10 square kilometers just 3 weeks ago. During the last aggression, a number of densely populated towns of Armenia came under heavy fire, as a result of which at least around 3,000 people in 3 provinces of Armenia, including children and disabled people, were displaced. More than 200 were killed. The shelling of the resort town of Jermuk, which has no absolutely military targets, is nothing short of a war crime, and so are the strike against the Kechut water reservoir with potentially catastrophic human toll and strikes and environmental impact. More than 10-hectare area of forest have been burned around Jermuk and other areas, and firefighters who try put the fire out and constantly being targeted by the Azerbaijani military forces. Up to date, the calls of the international community, international organizations, and states for Azerbaijan to withdraw its troops from the sovereign territory of the Republic of Armenia not only remain ignored by our neighbor, it continues its further act of aggression almost on a daily basis. We have been shocked these 2 days with video of captive Armenian soldiers' executions by Azerbaijani militaries that some of you may have seen, and that could only spark outrage and desperate call for accountability. War crimes committed by the Azerbaijani armed force should receive a clear assessment by international bodies, and the criminals should be brought to justice. It is about the challenges for the advancing environmental agenda. And now, please, I will pass to my presentation. So the government program of Armenia for 2021 for 5 years. The main objectives of the program are complex conservation, protection, improvement, recovery, and rational use of environment and national resources and natural resources through balancing the social justice and economic efficiency. The minimization of the negative impacts on the environment and exclusion of the overexploitation and illegal use of natural resources, ensuring the implementation of the preventive measures. The main vision of the government program is towards green transition and climate resilience rests on the principles of green, resilient, and low carbon growth, which entails scalability of adaptation and bankability of mitigation efforts, ranging from reforestation at scale to investment in renewable energy and energy efficiency. Next slide, please. Environmental policy of Armenia. The environmental protection policy of Armenia is mainly based on national legislation in full compliance with obligations taken by ratified multilateral and European agreements, and developed with the notion of identified environmental sector priorities, importance of cooperation with other sectors to catalyze finance towards addressing global environmental issues. Next slide, please. Legal, institutional, and strategic framework. Regarding the legal framework, I would like to say that environmental sector is regulated by moreover 1,000 legal acts. Within them codes, laws, government decrees, prime minister decrees, vice prime minister decrees, minister orders, etc. Since 2018, a series of reforms were initiated, and within them, the institutional framework, the environmental protection and mining inspection body was removed from the structure of the Ministry of Environment of the Republic of Armenia, and it is currently under the coordination of Prime Minister's office. The State Forest Committee was formed as a state body under the ministry. Before it was just a department. And Biodiversity and Forest Policy Department was formed at the ministry, which was later split into 2 different departments. In 2019, Climate Policy Department was formed at the ministry in order to demonstrate the high readiness of the readiness in the most highest level to streamline the climate agenda into the government program. The function of the Ministry of Emergency Situations, Observation, Studies, and Forecast of Hydrometeorological Phenomena has been delegated to the Ministry of Environment in order to ensure the unified and effective data management, monitoring, and improvement of environmental monitoring system. In 2020, the Forest Monitoring System, Environmental Monitoring and Information Center, Service of Active Influence on Hydrometeorological and Atmospheric Phenomena. These 3 state non-commercial organizations have been united in Hydrometeorology and Monitoring Center, SNCO, under the guidance of the Ministry of Environment. And in 2021, the Department of Permits, Licenses, and Compliances was split into the Department of Water Resources Management, Bioresources Management Department, and Waste and Atmospheric Emissions Management Department. Next slide, please. These are about the institutional and legislative reforms. And in 2018, Armenia ratified the Comprehensive and Enhanced Partnership Agreement with European Union. And in 2019, a roadmap of implementation of this CEPA agreement was established. Only the environment chapter includes over 100 activities related to air quality, water quality, natural resources management, waste management, biodiversity conservation, environmental governance, industrial pollution, chemicals management, etc. And a separate climate change chapter includes 20 activities. The activities are aimed in particular at meeting the commitments under the Paris Agreement, reducing and preventing climate change negative impact through appropriate mitigation and adaptation measures. Next slide, please. Sustainable Development Goals Agenda. In 2015, the Interagency Commission for the Sustainable Development Goals was formed. In 2018, the ecological subgroup of the Commission developed recommendations for the nationalizations of SDG 6, 11, 13, 14, 15, and 17. And in 2020, the new Council on Sustainable Development Goals was formed, and Armenia developed and submitted the voluntary report on the assessment of SDGs in Armenia in 2020. Next slide, please. Among the main achievements, I would like to mention the new and updated NDC and the National Climate Change Adaptation Plan and the Action Plan for 2021-2025. The updated NDC demonstrates increasing government's climate ambition and defines the country's new mitigation goal to be implemented by 2030 is equivalent to 40% reduction compared to the level of emissions in 1990, which is driven by the energy sector. Next slide, please. Adoption of policies aimed at fostering green economy has been outlined as a priority in government program for these 5 years. Implementation of the electric vehicles promotion strategy. Just some figures. Electric vehicles imported in 2017 is the number of these vehicles is 27, while in 2022 more than 7,000. More than 100 charging stations are installed in nearly all regions of Armenia. Next is the introduction of the extended producer's responsibility concept in Armenia and the introduction of a cost-effective renewable energy source in the country, in line with its strategy to foster low carbon generation and development of renewables. Next, please. The second environmental performance review of Armenia is considered by Armenia as an assessment tool of the country's progress in overcoming global environmental challenges, achieving sustainable development goals, and fulfilling international environmental obligations. The review is done for the past decade, and the recommendations received by the UNECE expert group come to prove that the series of reforms undertaken by the government of Armenia and the adopted environmental agenda are in line with the EU standards and international commitments. Considering the cross-sectoral nature of the EPR, it will support creating an introductory basis for initiating the integrated approach of the introduction to the multifunctional implementation of environmental policy with the involvement of all stakeholders. The involvement of Armenia in UNECE processes and initiatives has an important role in shaping the environmental agenda and reforms implementing in the country's environmental sector. Next slide, please. And in response to several challenges, the government of Armenia has delivered a successful COVID-19 response by providing support measures such as creating green jobs for the suffered sector of economy and vulnerable strata of population. Green recovery approach has been prioritized and incorporated into design support framework and negotiated with international development partners. However, the ongoing economic downturn requires more resources to be channeled and mobilized for re-engineering economic growth, and those require support from donor agencies and international development partners in recovering the country's economy through green recovery interventions. And also regarding the recommendations, I would like to thank you, our UNECE experts, as they are very important for us and mainly aimed at strengthening the national capacity in order to properly implement our commitments under global environmental treaties. And in this regard, we will try to follow them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rosanna, for the very comprehensive presentation. I am sure that you will implement the recommendations. I think that it's always so good to hear from the country that the recommendations are important for the country. So that's the purpose of the
Yes,
EPRs.
sure.
I am very impressed, and I'm sure that colleagues are also very impressed with the progress achieved by Armenia, not only from the institutional point of view, because you have reinforced the institutional setting for environmental protection, and also from the legal regulatory point of view. So congratulations. We see that significant developments have taken place. I have a request from Azerbaijan. Faik, I don't know if you want to take the floor now or if it's now. Okay, so I'll give you the floor, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, today we heard the untruthful accusations by the Armenian delegation, another attempt to distract the peace process even during today's environmental meeting. By utilizing our right to reply, we would like to mention that the remarks and accusations against Azerbaijan expressed by the Armenian delegation here today have no legal basement and must be rejected at all. Azerbaijan is a country which suffered for almost 30 years from the aggression and occupation policy of Armenia. As a result of this aggression, 20% of Azerbaijani territories were occupied, around 30,000 Azerbaijanis were martyred, and more than 1 million became refugees and internally displaced persons during these years of occupation. Armenia conducted its war crimes and acts of vandalism, herbicide, ecocide, and cultural genocide in Azerbaijani's occupied territories during the 30 years. The 3-decade-long Armenian occupation inflicted massive destruction and degradation of environment and the extermination of our natural resource. Meanwhile, the whole unique ecosystem of not only Azerbaijan, but the whole region and beyond has been irrevocably damaged and vandalized by Armenia. After the liberation of these territories, we revealed facts of severe destruction of forests, specially protected areas, ancient natural monuments, and exploitation of mineral resource. Almost 30% of forest areas were destroyed. Illegal exploitation of the mineral deposits inflicted severe environmental damage. Armenia has completely destroyed and ruthlessly uprooted 200-year-old plane trees, which are considered to be Basit Chai Nature Reserve's main nature complex. We were deprived of our rivers for 30 years. In spring and summer, when we needed water, Armenia blocked the Tartar River and created drought in our hundreds of thousands of hectares of land. And then in winter, they opened the river and caused floods. Armenia continues to severely pollute transboundary Okchuchai River by mining sectors, untreated wastewater with chemicals and heavy metals, which they used to do during the last 30 years. It was and is environmental terrorism of Armenia. Armenian military political leadership was threatening Azerbaijan with a new war for new territories. On September 27, 2020, Armenia launched large-scale military aggression against Azerbaijan, heavily shelling the military and civilian populations of Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan was compelled to launch a counter-offensive, a peace enforcement operation to defend its citizens. Azerbaijan fought in its own territory. Azerbaijan implemented 4 Security Council resolutions of UN and norms and principles of international law, which demanded an immediate and conditional and complete withdrawal of Armenian military force from the internationally recognized territories of Azerbaijan on November 8, 2020. Azerbaijan has restored historical justice and its territorial integrity. We can bring to the attention of distinguished delegates here many examples of Armenian terrorism and vandalism. Hope our Armenian colleagues will attitude constructively, stop their traditional lies, and will not distract the efforts of Azerbaijan to normalize relations with Armenia. Today, our main task is the great return to the liberated territories, to restore and improve the natural ecosystems, biodiversity, as well as rare and endangered plant species. Azerbaijan is taking all steps to revive and bring back life to these areas. Unfortunately, on September 13 of this year, Armenia committed again a large-scale military provocations on the state border with Azerbaijan. The armed forces of Azerbaijan resolutely prevented this provocation. This provocation by Armenia is a big blow to the normalization process between the countries. Therefore, all responsibility falls on the military and political leadership of Armenia. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Faik. As you all know, all statements of all countries, of all delegations are recorded in the minutes. Apart from having countries in the room, we also have people representing these countries. Therefore, we all feel the negative, the suffering of all of you. But here I'm also the guardian of the agenda of the CEP. And we have also targets here to achieve in terms of agenda. So what I suggest is that after listening to you very carefully, and since you know that everything you say will be recorded in the minutes, I suggest that we go back to the EPR issue, which is also, I think, quite important because it's an opportunity to do better in something that I'm sure that all of us consider very, very important for our well-being, which is to take care of the environment. And we are here back to back with the Conference on Environment for Europe. So let's try to use also this opportunity to be more optimistic about our common future. We will have to live with each other, regardless of what is happening in many places. I am optimistic by nature, and I believe that at one point in time we will succeed to have a much better future. So if you allow me, I will kindly ask you that we go back to the EPR so that we can conclude our mandate today. Achi, you are here next to me, which is wonderful. So I would like to invite you to share the key findings in selected areas of the second EPR of Armenia. If you allow me, you have your flag up?
Yes.
Or can we continue and then I will give you the floor?
Yes, I would really appreciate if the floor is given, but of course later with the due respect, please follow the agenda.
Yes, I will give you the floor after, okay? So I will just give this opportunity to Harry to address the EPR's achievement, because otherwise we will lose the contact between the presentation and the reaction from Ari as the member of the expert group responsible for this EPR. So Ari, you have the floor, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have a task to look over those achievements and key findings. What we found when we discussed EPR of Armenia, it was in September. We covered 1.5 days to look through a report with all those recommendations. As we know that EPR of Armenia includes 18 chapters and results in 87 recommendations to the country, what contains 229 sub-recommendations. That's quite extensive report, like also others. This report this time contains 4 parts: environmental governance and financing, domestic international interface, also environmental media and pollution management, and finally integration of environment into sectoral policies. First of all, I would like to focus to some general findings concerning legal policy and institutional framework. As we know, currently legal system in Armenia is undergoing important and widespread upgrading process as country harmonize its laws and regulations with those of European Union. Important work is going on. Amendments and the new laws and regulations are being prepared or will be initiated in the next few years, notably further to European Union Armenia Comprehensive and Enhanced Partnership Agreement, as we heard also by presentation of Armenia. Therefore, expert group found that Armenia should continue its efforts in the approximation of its environmental and the climate change legislation further to European Union directives, and the complete legislation on climate change, chemicals, biosafety, biosecurity, and determination of environmental harm. In that context, also important is to complete the regulatory framework for strategic environmental impact assessment, particularly through amended law on EAA and expertise, and complete relevant secondary implementing legislation. For strengthening the policy framework, governmental programs are important, but more overarching environmental policy is needed. Therefore, for example, recommendation is to improve that aspect and to finalize a green economy strategy that addresses low carbon development, circular economy, and electromobility, while engaging all relevant authorities at early stage, as well as strategies on water, forest, and environmental education. In the report, we can see that for the environmental sector have large beneficial changes in recent years. The policy framework is being maintained despite of limited resources available for policy making. In that direction, further analysis and capacity building should be developed. Now I follow my findings for some selected areas as soil conservation and agriculture. In Armenia, the framework on soil conservation is updated, but does not reflect the current situation on soil conservation due to the lack of data on soil in the country. Soil degradation is a concern in Armenia. It is driven by both natural and human factors, the rugged terrain, erratic rainfall, and its unequal distribution throughout the year, combined with the droughts and sandstorm, provide a favorable setting for degradation. Therefore, soil conservation was selected among of topics in this report, and several recommendations were proposed to improve the current situation. The availability of soil information is essential for decision making. However, there is no soil monitoring system in place. Therefore, the recommendation is to established through the Ministry of Environment a well-designed grid-based soil monitoring system, which will cover the whole territory and consider a larger density of soil sampling at contaminated sites and croplands, as well as making the data publicly available. In addition to that, the Ministry of Environment, in cooperation with relevant stakeholders, should develop databases that provide information on the current soil characteristics and environmental conditions. Based on updated soil data, the Ministry of Environment, in cooperation with the relevant stakeholders, should revise the land code, integrate and operationalize soil protection and especially humus enhancing management options, and revise the policy on soil conservation, protection and management. So far, no control on the use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides are carried out. Therefore, recommendation is also to Minister of Economy and Minister of Environment to increase control on the use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides and promote environmental friendly farming practices such as regenerative and climate smart agriculture that is supported with the necessary funding. Following my findings with agriculture, we see some recommendations related with the previous ones, but some more recommendations to sector-oriented. A greater challenge for agriculture in Armenia is to succeed in the transition from the current agrarian model to a modern, inclusive and sustainable model that is economically profitable and competitive, which meets the social needs of the poverty reduction, food and security, and unemployment. The unsustainable use of natural resources, water, soil and forest, inter alia, as well as agriculture and aquaculture activities are the two main threats of this heritage. Therefore, strategy of the main directions ensuring economic development in agricultural sector for 2020-2030 is important to follow. And we recommend to set up a comprehensive cross-cutting and coordinated monitoring system which allows monitoring of the environmental impact of agriculture and the effects of responses aimed to minimize those impacts. In this chapter, there are several recommendations to government to improve water management in that sector, such as to reduce water needs and consumption by fostering crop varieties and animal breeds resistant to climate change and less demanding on water resources, adapting agronomic practices and techniques which consume less water, and also renovate the irrigation system as well as increase the efficiency of the irrigation methods. Also important is to prevent water pollution by minimizing the use of chemical products. Following animal husbandry, that is a central component in agricultural sector, faces an unsustainable pasture management. The use of technologies to reduce the pressure on the water and land resources are not promoted. Therefore, there is a recommendation to government set up a specific program aiming to restore degraded land and appropriate remediation methods and nature-based solutions to remove and stabilize contaminants from the soils, and also to initiate and promote the capacity building initiative at the farmer level to preserve soils and land and restore those that are contaminated and degraded. Summarizing our findings for soil protection and agriculture, we recommend Armenia to establish innovative technical and financial tools and incentives as required by SDG 9 to preserve environment throughout the agriculture sustainable management process. With that, I thank our expert group for that work to finalize the recommendation, and I wish success to Armenia to follow all those recommendations. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ahi. I will now open the floor to delegations to ask questions, or if Armenia wants to speak first, or do you wish to wait for the other delegations? Okay, so other colleagues would like to ask any clarification, provide any comments. I think that the presentations were quite good, quite comprehensive. And you, of course, you have challenges, but you have the commitment to overcome those challenges. For me, this is very, very clear. So if there are no questions from colleagues or requests for clarification, perhaps I will just now invite the committee to adopt the recommendations of the second EPR of Armenia by acclamation. I think it's the first time we do it here. Thank you. So congratulations, Armenia, for the successful work.
Thank you.
And if there are no requests from the floor, would you like to take the floor? Yes, so I give you the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to break positive spirit, but I will wait for our dear colleagues from Azerbaijan to have their EPR, then later I will say as a reply. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your constructive spirit. I will now... Sorry. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Faik. So we will now move to the third EPR of Azerbaijan. And I would like to inform you that the recommendations of the third EPR of Azerbaijan were finalized by the expert group on EPRs together with the delegation of Azerbaijan, and they are presented in information paper number 16. I would like now to invite the Deputy Minister to present the key achievements to date. Let us just make some arrangements here, to changes in the podium. Ms. Alessandra Fidanza from Italy is the rapporteur designated by the expert group on EPRs for this specific EPR. The delegation of Azerbaijan is composed by Mr. Vuga Karimov, Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources of Azerbaijan, and Mr. Faik Mutalimov, Head of the Environmental Policy Division from the Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources as well. And I would like now to invite the Deputy Minister to present the key achievements to date and main challenges encountered by the country with regard to the environmental agenda for sustainable development. And Minister, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation. I give you the floor, please.
Thank you very much. Уважаемый председатель, дамы и господа, прежде всего позвольте представить членов комитета и группы экспертов от имени Министерства экологии и природных ресурсов Азербайджана и выразить искреннюю благодарность Европейской экономической комиссии ООН за подготовку третьего обзора результативности экологической деятельности Азербайджана и правительству Республики Кипр за оказанное гостеприимство. В отличие от армянской страны, я не буду трогать политические вопросы, сразу перехожу к своему докладу. Со времени второго доклада Азербайджан достиг значительный прогресс в области охраны окружающей среды и устойчивого управления природными ресурсами. Основная миссия в области охраны окружающей среды состоит в защите экосистем, минимизации вредного воздействия на окружающую среду и обеспечении устойчивого развития при эффективном использовании природных ресурсов с целью обеспечения проживания населения в экологически чистой среде. В своей политике Азербайджан следует принципам устойчивого развития, целям по обеспечению баланса между социально-экономическим и экологическим развитием. Защита окружающей среды всегда была приоритетом в нашей стране. Азербайджан является участником более 20 международных природоохранных конвенций, активно участвует в различных экологических инициативах. Также идет работа по присоединению к другим международным многосторонним соглашениям. В 2015 году Азербайджан одобрил повестку в области устойчивого развития на период до 2030 года и выразил решительную поддержку и реализацию путем достижения целей ЦУР. За 7 лет, прошедших с этого момента, Азербайджан принял ряд мер, направленных на интеграцию целей и задач в свои национальные планы развития. Определены национальные приоритеты и индикаторы, соответствующие глобальным целям и задачам государственной программы и стратегии, охватывающие социально-экономическую и экологическую сферы страны, приведены в соответствии с целями устойчивого развития. Утвержден стратегический документ «Азербайджан-2030. Национальные приоритеты социально-экономического развития». В нем обозначен вектор долгосрочного развития страны, направленный на социально-экономическую и экологическую устойчивость посредством 5 соответствующих национальных приоритетов, включая чистую окружающую среду и зеленый рост. В процессе согласования закона об оценке воздействия на окружающую среду от 2018 года с Конвенцией ЭСПО недавно были приняты 2 нормативных правовых акта: положение о проведении стратегической экологической оценки и правила и сроки проведения оценки воздействия на окружающую среду, в том числе трансграничной оценки воздействия. Кроме того, недавно были пересмотрены один из существенных механизмов экономического стимулирования: плата за природопользование и сбросы загрязняющих веществ в окружающей среде, направленные на стимулирование борьбы с загрязнением и ресурсосбережением за счет существенного повышения платы за сбросы в атмосферу и воду, а также за образование отходов. Азербайджан является одной из стран с богатым биоразнообразием. В связи с этим защита биоразнообразия в нашей стране имеет как национальное, региональное, как и глобальное значение. В настоящее время сеть особо охраняемых природных территорий в Азербайджане составляет 10,3% от общей территории страны. Включает в себя 10 национальных парков, 10 заповедников, 24 заказника. Наша цель — увеличить их площадь, а также улучшить инфраструктуру и управление для обеспечения надлежащих охраны видов. Создание новых типов особо охраняемых природных территорий является одним из приоритетных направлений. В 2018 году был создан первый Приморский Кызылагайский национальный парк. Также ведутся работы по созданию первого в стране биосферного резервата в северо-западной части страны на базе Закатальского заповедника. Создание геопарка на базе заповедника грязевых вулканов будет стимулировать развитие геотуризма в Азербайджане, стране с самыми распространенными грязевыми вулканами. Одной из основных целей является повышение международной осведомленности о богатом биологическом разнообразии Азербайджана. В этом направлении планируется включение Кирканских лесов и грязевых вулканов Азербайджанской республики в список всемирного наследия ЮНЕСКО. Ведутся работы в области увеличения численности редких и исчезающих видов и их реинтродукции на территории, где они исторически обитали. В Карабахском и Восточно-Зангезурском районах начато восстановление сети особо охраняемых природных территорий, 2 заповедника и 4 заказника общей площадью 43 тысячи гектаров. Совместно с Национальной академией наук Азербайджана и другими научными учреждениями готовится 3-е издание Красной книги, которая будет опубликована в следующем 2023 году. В Азербайджане только около 12% территории покрыты лесами. Поэтому одним из наших приоритетов является защита лесов и увеличение их площади. Газификация 95% территории страны позволит значительно снизить степень антропогенного воздействия на леса. При поддержке ФАО и турецких специалистов по лесному хозяйству мы проводим совместную инвентаризацию, чтобы уточнить точную площадь и качество лесов, обеспечить устойчивое использование лесного хозяйства на основе международной практики. Завершается разработка национальной программы по развитию лесов, рассчитанная на 10 лет. В рамках сотрудничества с Турцией ведутся работы по созданию современного питомника и Карабахского международного учебного центра с целью подготовки специалистов лесного хозяйства. Также ведется озеленение жилых массивов, особенно вокруг крупных городов и вдоль автомагистралей. Увеличение площади лесов играет особую роль в формировании водных ресурсов и способствует смягчению последствий изменения климата. Азербайджан присоединился к Боннскому вызову с обязательством восстановить к 2030 году 270 тысяч гектаров лесных угодий. Ежегодно высаживаются миллионы деревьев для предотвращения опустынивания и поддержки естественного восстановления лесов. В последние годы реализован ряд крупных проектов в направлении восстановления территорий, загрязненных нефтехимическими веществами. Очищено около 500 гектаров загрязненных различными отходами территорий на Обширонском полуострове, восстановлен и озеленен ландшафт. В рамках проекта восстановления Обширинских озер очищено около 300 гектаров площади озера Бюйükшор, самого большого озера полуострова. Построен бульвар Бюйükшор, благоустроены и озеленены прибрежные территории, организован контроль качества воды в онлайн-режиме. Помимо этих инициатив реализуются такие мероприятия по озеленению, как создание современных агролесных массивов. Эти меры будут способствовать выполнению наших обязательств по международным конвенциям об изменении климата, сохранению биоразнообразия и борьбы с опустыниванием. Управление отходами проблема общая для всех стран, проявляется она и в нашей стране. Благодаря конструкции Балканского полигона по современным стандартам воды в эксплуатацию завода по сжиганию и сортировке твердых бытовых отходов, созданию полигона опасных отходов, полной реставрации полигонов и ликвидации многочисленных несанкционированных свалок в Баку ощущаются радикальные позитивные изменения. Согласно изменениям в законодательстве запрещено использование полиэтиленовых пакетов толщиной до 15 микрон, а также пластиковых принадлежностей одноразового использования. Также принято постановление правительства об обязательном платном обороте полиэтиленовых пакетов толщиной до 50 микрон. Мы относимся к числу стран, имеющих ограниченные водные ресурсы. Поэтому одним из главных приоритетов государства является защита и рациональное использование водных ресурсов. В целях совершенствования управления водным хозяйством и координирования деятельности в этой сфере в 2020 году была создана Государственная водная комиссия. Относительно проводимых в стране работ по достижению цели ЦУР-6 реализуются крупномасштабные проекты по совершенствованию системы управления водных ресурсов, строительство водохранилищ, внедрение технологий водосбережения, повторное использование сточных вод и опреснение морской воды. Разрабатывается водная стратегия Азербайджана. В целях модернизации сети гидрологического мониторинга только в течение 2 последних лет были установлены около 75 автоматических гидрологических станций, один из них которых на освобожденных территориях. Сегодня одним из приоритетов государства является восстановление освобожденных территорий. Данное направление включает создание зоны зеленой энергии, внедрение зеленого сельского хозяйства, создание умных городов и деревень. Азербайджан заявил о намерении создать на освобожденных территориях к 2050 году зону чистого нулевого выброса, в основном доступ к водным ресурсам региона, а также расширенные возможности их устойчивого использования, осуществляются меры по эффективному использованию водного потенциала Карабахского региона, что в свою очередь оказывает положительное влияние на общий водный баланс страны. В настоящее время основная проблема качества атмосферного воздуха связана с быстрым увеличением количества транспортных средств и использованием старых автомобилей, отвечающих экологическим нормам. Разумеется, что качество топлива играет здесь ключевую роль. Работу по реконструкции и модернизации, проводимые на нефтеперерабатывающем заводе, положительно сказывается на улучшении экологической ситуации столицы, а в ближайшей перспективе производства на заводе высококачественного топлива создать условия для достаточного снижения выбросов в атмосферу. В последние годы значительно увеличены государственные инвестиции в модернизацию дорожной инфраструктуры Баку. Усовершенствуется созданный Бакинский центр интеллектуального управления транспорта. В 2021 году Азербайджан подписал декларацию КОП-26 об ускорении перехода на автомобиль с нулевым уровнем выбросов для достижения целей Парижского соглашения. Снижение налогов на покупку автомобилей и автобусов с низким уровнем выбросов будет способствовать этому переходу. В результате применения ряда финансовых стимулов на импорт экологически чистых электрических и гибридных автомобилей их количество в стране увеличивается. Азербайджан ратифицировал Парижское соглашение рамочной конвенции ООН об изменении климата в октябре 2016 года и поставил цель сократить выбросы парниковых газов на 35% к 2030 году. В рамках климатического саммита в Глазго мы обозначили новую цель по сокращению выбросов до 40% к 2050 году. Для выполнения этого обязательства реализуются инфраструктурные проекты с применением экологически чистых технологий, использованием неисчерпаемых источников энергии, повышением энергоэффективности и другими соответствующими проектами. Азербайджан поставил цель увеличить долю возобновляемой энергии в производстве электроэнергии до 30% к 2030 году. В настоящее время реализуются масштабные проекты в области производства электроэнергии солнечной и ветровой энергии. В целях обеспечения устойчивости к опасным гидрометеорологическим явлениям совершенствуется система раннего оповещения. За последние несколько лет для наблюдения и обнаружения гидрометеорологических процессов установлены 2 доплеровские радары, десятки современных автоматических гидрометеорологических и морских станций. Введен в эксплуатацию ситуационный центр в Баку. Анализируя свою деятельность, оглядываясь назад, мы осознаем, что многое сделали. Решили трудные задачи. Глядя вперед, понимаем, что есть еще много задач, которые ждут своего решения. Третий обзор результативности экологической деятельности Азербайджана включает 18 глав, охватывающие все сектора. Доклад дает широкий обзор и оценивает прогресс страны в формировании национальной политики и выполнении международных обязательств путем согласования экологических и экономических целей. Мы считаем, что выполнение рекомендаций приведет к улучшению управления окружающей средой и будет способствовать достижению соответствующей целей в области устойчивого развития. Мы высоко оцениваем этот доклад и рекомендации, которые будут учтены в дальнейшей деятельности. Это будет наша настольная книга, как и предыдущая публикация. Спасибо за внимание.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the comprehensive presentation. It is obvious that considerable progress has been achieved also by Azerbaijan, and that you have made, especially in the recent years, very strong commitments towards the environmental agenda. And with regard to challenges, I think that all countries face numerous challenges. When you work for environment, you need to be prepared to work for a never-ending process. I would now like to invite the rapporteur of the CPR, Ms. Alessandra Fidanza, to share the key findings in selected areas of the FDPR and the steps necessary to address the challenges to which you refer to, Minister. Alessandra, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The third EPR of Azerbaijan investigated the progress made in the governance and management of the environment since the second review in 2011, including the implementation of the recommendations of that EPR. It features an assessment of 65 SDGs targets covering 16 SDGs. During the review mission, experts could appreciate the richness of Azerbaijani culture, natural capital and economy, highlighting some challenges that the country can positively address to enhance its prosperity and sustainability at the national levels. Due to its extremely varied topography, Azerbaijan climate ranges from subtropical to temperate to alpine. Precipitation is unequally distributed over its territory, with significant interannual variations. The capital Baku on the Caspian Sea has a moderately warm and dry climate with a hot summer and a short, mild winter. Land management is at the core of economic and social development in contemporary Azerbaijan. It is a complex nexus in its efforts to give a new stimulus to the economy, according to strategic roadmaps calling for diversifying the economy from the oil and aspiring to transition to a knowledge and innovation-based economy. Azerbaijan's economy has been closely connected to the oil industry since the world's first modern offshore oil well was drilled near Baku in the 19th century. In the early 20th century, almost half of the world's oil was extracted in Baku. The oil industry also developed engineering and industrial capabilities, which led Azerbaijan to become a major refining and oil field equipment production center. Azerbaijan derives about 1/3 of its total GDP from oil and gas, which also account for 2/3 of the government's budget revenues and over 87% of export revenues in 2020. Rapid industrialization has led to a decline in the importance of the agricultural sector. In 1991, it still produced 30% of GDP, whereas by 2020, agricultural share of GDP had plummeted to 7.7%. By 2012, Azerbaijan had achieved a 29% reduction of GHG emissions compared to 1990, thanks to industrial modernization and more efficient technologies. In January 2017, Azerbaijan ratified the Paris Agreement on climate change. Thermal and power plants are the major emitters of GHG. From 2010, electricity and heat production switched to mainly natural gas, whose production increased in the past decade. About 40% of the population and country's industrial facilities are concentrated in the coastal area. The coast and the south are rich in oil and gas. The Caspian Sea is already impacted by climate change, and addressing its resilience to the global warming is crucial to guarantee economic, social, and environmental stability. The water level of the Caspian Sea is reducing due to combined factors: change in the water inflow by rivers originating in neighboring countries, and evaporation due to temperature increase. Climate change is altering the ecology of the shorelines and the species of the Caspian Sea. Glaciers are shrinking, and some high-altitude species are expected to retreat even higher until their habitat disappears. The EPR highlighted the need to deploy adaptation and mitigation plans at the national and local scale, and the opportunity of integrating climate change considerations into territorial and sectoral planning to face the consequences of climate change on economy, environment, and human health. It also recommended to elaborate a national DRR strategy and to improve forest fire prevention actions. The EPR emphasized the opportunity to address the issue of water scarcity and climate change-related droughts by using technologies for stormwater harvesting and reuse in urban and agricultural contexts, and to promote awareness-raising campaigns on water savings, especially in summer times. For the energy sector, the EPR recommended to consider upgrading all energy infrastructure to improve their productivity and increase energy security, and to use renewable energy sources instead of fossil fuels wherever possible. In Azerbaijan, rising ambient temperatures have several adverse effects in the energy sector, including increased fuel consumption for the production of energy in thermal power and modular power plants, overheating of electromechanical equipment, increase of the risk of spontaneous ignition of crops and plants in the buffered zones of power lines. Azerbaijan has 3 sites under the UNESCO World Heritage List as cultural properties. The first site is the walled city of Baku, with the Shirvanshah Palace and Maiden Tower, inscribed in the year 2000. In general, the sites are in satisfactory conditions, but not well inspected, and more resources could ensure their appropriate management and coordination. The EPR remarked the opportunity for Azerbaijan of raising population awareness on the importance of historical and cultural sites in line with the contents of the European Landscape Convention. The worsening of soil and air quality in urban areas is partially attributable to the housing sector, boosted in recent years. Industrial sites are sometimes still present in urban areas or their close proximities, and very often old equipment affects air and soil quality. In 2021, 53% of the population of Azerbaijan lived in urban areas. Baku is the most densely populated city, followed by other major centers like Sumgait and Ganja. In the past decade, GHG emissions, CO2 equivalent from households, increased to a total of 8.4 tons in 2020, with an increase in CO2, methane, and nitrous oxide. Most residential buildings do not yet use alternative and renewable energy sources. Urban areas like Baku lack sufficient green areas, and there are not yet specific energy efficiency requirements at the neighborhood scale. There is room for integrating climate change into planning, as well as enhancement of local cultural identity features. The EPR remarked the opportunity of introducing specific requirements for a minimum ratio between pervious and impervious surfaces in urban areas, like the green area ratio or the biotope area factor. Green networks, green infrastructure, and nature-based solutions at the large scale, in line with the most recent international experiences should be foreseen and implemented. At the building scale, prescriptions could be developed for the greening of rooftops, facades, streets, and courtyards, also to incentivize the transformation of impervious surfaces into green surfaces or solutions for rainwater harvesting. EPR experts assess that large urban developments could be further improved and become more attractive by reducing their carbon footprint and addressing the urban heat island phenomenon by increasing permeable surfaces and green areas, extensively adopting renewable energy sources, including, where applicable, the shallow geothermal, and applying net zero energy building standards. Experts appreciated the richness of Azeri cultural identity and suggested that it is enhanced also at the territorial, urban, and building scales, combining tradition with innovative, sustainable, and climate-proof designs. The use of local construction materials and designs would improve development's overall sustainability and promote features belonging to Azerbaijani remarkable culture. EPR experts suggested to consider nature-based solutions as a preferred adaptation options at all scales, and to use strategic environmental assessment as a tool to integrate climate change considerations into urban planning. Also, to improve the quality of life of citizens living in urban areas by integrating climate change and mitigation adaptation at the neighborhood scale. Finally, the third EPR of Azerbaijan consists of 18 chapters, which include 78 recommendations and 142 sub-recommendations. It was possible thanks to the efforts of UNECE and countries' experts, along with Azerbaijan's experts, who supported the mission and provided documents for the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alessandra, for the comprehensive presentation. I would like now to open the floor for possible comments or questions. Would any delegation would like to intervene? You are very silent today. Not sure whether this is a good signal or a bad signal. I think that the presentations were quite comprehensive, and this is also a reason. I have to say that when I was listening to Alessandra, I was thinking that we present, I was part of this team, and I have been part of many EPR teams. I don't know, 10, 11, I don't even remember how many EPRs I did. And many times we present recommendations to the countries subject to the review that we should present to our own countries, because these are the recommendations quite difficult to implement. Let's be honest. But now go back. Okay, I think OECD, Christoph, you're breaking the ice. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yes, I hope you won't mind that we will continue the discussion on those two very interesting environmental performance review reports. And certainly there is a special linkage and relation between the OECD and UNECE on the environmental performance review program, because those two have been building on each other, and certainly we're still trying to establish and keep the relations between those two. both for the OECD countries and for countries of the UNECE. They are an important instrument to basically understand what's the situation in countries, to gain a perception of progress and challenges, and then get a very objective, constructive recommendations for the future. So from this perspective, I think this is an excellent instrument for policy making. And let me just highlight two elements on both sides, on Armenia EPR and Azerbaijan EPR, which are, I would say, kind of exceptional in terms of progress that has been made. In the Armenian EPR, the one element that was highlighted was the work on environmental inspection, on environmental enforcement and compliance. And this is a tremendously important element of policy making. It's good to have policies, ambitious policies and laws and regulations, but the question is, what's the situation on the ground? How they are being implemented, followed by the enterprises, by the operators of industrial facilities, whether big or small. And then the example of the Armenian Inspectorate and the fact that it actually has now a unique feature of being subordinated to the Council of Ministers rather than to the Ministry of Environment. That's a very interesting feature that was highlighted. And we've also seen a lot of instruments that have been adopted by the Inspectorate to actually shift from the traditional stick approach of trying to enforce laws into compliance promotion. And that's a very important feature that I would say everyone, countries in the region should learn from, is really how important it is first to explain what the regulations are and then encourage enterprises to follow. So that's something that I would certainly encourage everyone to study and to see how Armenia has been applying some of the modern tools in terms of risk-based approach to enforcement and compliance promotion. And on the Azerbaijan side, the one very interesting feature that we've observed is the work of trying to green enterprise sector, and especially the recent experience from the SME Development Agency that has been active for quite a few years now in Azerbaijan. That's a very good example of how the mainstream, the economic entities could actually try to push through also the green agenda. And then the work, then the awareness that is being raised on the green issues at the SME Development Agency, that's another example that I think countries should follow. And I just wanted to highlight those two very interesting examples that countries mutually can learn from and then of interest to progressing on environmental policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I very much agree with you. Well, usually there is a gap between legal provisions and implementation, and there are certain institutions that help very much to ensure that implementation is done. And inspectorates, of course, they have this role. And also, I would like to highlight that your reaction is here was very important, because I think that the EPRs and EFE in general, it provides a platform not only for cooperation between countries, but also cooperation between international organizations. And I'm also looking at Marika from UNEP, and OECD and UNEP, you have participated so actively in the EPRs, part of the team providing information together with the UNECE and all the consultants that compose the teams. And this is, in fact, a best practice. And I truly hope that we can continue with this practice, because we all win from this very strong commitment of all the international organizations in these exercises. With regard to the gap between legal provisions and implementation, I remember that in Portugal, and this should not go into the records, please. I remember that in Portugal when countries decided to start discussing the accidents caused by using mobile phones in cars when you were driving. Portugal was one of the first countries to react to this with a very strong law, very high fines when you were caught driving and at the same time using your mobile. And I remember that colleagues from other countries would say, okay, now the problem is solved because you have this such strong fight. No, it was not, because there was a huge gap. So we had the law, but in fact we continue to use the mobile. So sometimes legal provisions are not enough, but they are a first step towards having a very strong solution to the problems. And so if other colleagues do not wish to take the floor, Armenia, I'll give you the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. It is really, I wish the times were that we here in the UNECE speak only about the environment and environmental impact, but were witnessed yesterday as well. So the political issues and environment are so much correlated, and they cannot be separated, unfortunately. It is the case in my country and in our region as well. So as there were numerous false accusations on Armenia from the right of reply of Azeri colleague, I cannot but take the floor to reply. And at the outset, let me stress that the repetitive propaganda narrative not backed by any factual evidence and voiced here by Azerbaijan serve nothing but a bold blame game for the sake of concealing its own well-documented and well-reported crimes. The false narrative and lies have no limits. They say we provoke large-scale aggression. It is so absurd that only one need to look at the map to understand the total absurd of their narrative. But our Azeri colleagues forget that their highest authorities many times proudly praised that they solved the problems with the use of force and are doing it all over again, claiming that almost the whole territory of the Republic of Armenia, including our capital Yerevan, belongs to so-called historic Azerbaijan. So I would recommend my Azerbaijani colleagues to update their replies. When voicing groundless accusations, Azerbaijan very conveniently forgets that exactly 2 years ago, during its aggressive war against Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh, Azerbaijan used internationally banned weapons, including chemical ones, aimed at targeting not only civilian, but also beautiful forests of the large area, causing massive forest fires and creating environmental disasters in place. First, they bomb and destroy forests and national parks and areas with their unique flora and fauna, including in the region red list of plant and animal species. And they invite international agencies and donors to invest in the cause of preservation of the same areas and species, or what is left from them. The consistent policy of destruction of Armenian regional and historical cultural heritage. You were mentioning about the cultural heritage, so I decided to touch upon this issue as well. And distortion of their identity in the territories fallen under the control of Azerbaijan continues to the present day. The UN International Court of Justice delivered its clear assessment to these crimes, finding that there is an imminent risk of irreparable harm to the rights of the Armenians under the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination. In this case, it is more than urgent to ensure the unhindered access and activities of relevant international humanitarian structures in and around Nagorno-Karabakh. As we mentioned, starting from September 13, a number of densely populated towns of the Sovereign Republic of Armenia, including resort town of Goris, Jermuk, Goris, Vartanis, Kapan, Sot, came under heavy fires, including the vast areas of forest, water reservoirs, and other environmental targeted areas. So we are facing, as I speak here, we are facing environmental catastrophe, burning fires, burning forests, and our firefighters are not able to go and put the fire out. Yeah, we call on the international community to step up its efforts to prevent such irresponsible and inhumane behavior. Of course, the environmental challenges do not recognize borders and conflict lines, and we should bring all states of the world into comprehensive cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, you are right. Environmental challenges do not recognize borders. And Azerbaijan, Faik, would you like to take the floor? I will give you the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. We again hear the untruthful accusations by the Armenian delegation without any fact on the floor. But instead, after the liberation of our territories, we have gave some time for Armenians to leave these territories. Despite that, Armenia has fully capitulated in the Karabakh War. Azerbaijan, based on its principles of humanism, gave Armenia 25 days to leave the occupied territories according to the agreement signed on November 10, 2020. But they used this time to plant new mines in those territories. They burned houses that they didn't build but settled in there. They cut trees and caused other disasters while leaving the Azerbaijani territories in 2020. All Azerbaijani cities and villages have been razed to the ground by Armenia during the years of occupation. We have all the facts, we have all the pictures here. We can show, and we all witnessed this results of occupation. Most of the international organizations, the countries witnessed these results of occupation. Aghdam city is called now Hiroshima of Caucasus by foreign and international experts. Armenia deliberately vandalized, desecrated, and pillaged our cultural and religious sites. Unfortunately, 64 mosques out of 67 have been destroyed, and the remaining ones were insulted by Armenia during the years of occupation. Mosques were turned into the cowsheds and pigsty. During the military attacks by Armenia in November, Göygöl and Ağgöl national parks located outside the front line were bombed several times, causing irrevocable damage to the ecosystem and natural landscape. Prohibited white phosphorus weapons used by Armenian forces in Shusha caused huge damage to forests. Prior to the occupation, more than 2,000 species of plants were found in these areas, which accounted 42% of flora of Azerbaijan. Most of these species are endemic to the UNECE region. The region's habitat for a big number of species. At present, it's hard to find these species in these areas. We have visited this area several times. It's really hard to see the damage caused to the unique ecosystem of our Karabakh. During visits to liberated areas and monitoring, it wasn't possible to observe the animals and birds that characterize the fauna of the region. Armenians torched woodlands in Shusha region with banned white phosphorus. Forest fires deliberately used to pressure residents of areas outside the occupied territory during the occupation. We would like to recall UN resolution number 60/285 to 2060 condemned the widespread environmental damage to Karabakh resulting from occupation. As well as in 2016, the resolution number 2085 of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe was adopted on the deliberate deprivation of water towards residents of the frontier regions of Azerbaijan. The Assembly requested the Armenian authority to cease using water resource as tools of political influence or instrument of pressure. distinguished delegates, we can continue this the list of the impact, and I'm sure that you are all now what was happened, and we have all the facts, we have all the pictures, we have all the detailed facts what happened in these territories. And as we mentioned, we implemented 4 Security Council resolutions of UN and norms and principles of international law, which demanded an immediate, unconditional, and complete withdrawal of our Armenian military forces. And we fought in our territories, and the justice prevailed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Faik. As I said, as the chair of the CEP, I give the floor to delegations. I'll listen to delegations, to countries, but as Elizabeth, I see Faik and Rosanna. And as in the case of the EPR of Armenia, what I suggest now as the guardian of the agenda is that we go back to the agenda item, which is on the EPR of Azerbaijan. And if there are no further requests from the floor, if it seems to be the case, I would suggest that the committee adopts the recommendations of the third EPR of Azerbaijan by acclamation. So congratulations to Azerbaijan. And now we move to the third EPR of Kyrgyzstan. Just give us a few minutes so we can make here some adjustments to the podium. So to ensure that no one is surprised, we intended to take a decision on the EPR of Kyrgyzstan, which would be to approve the recommendations, but taking into consideration yesterday's and today's discussions I had with the distinguished representative of Kyrgyzstan, we will take a decision, but not exactly the one that we foresaw. So I want you to understand that this will happen and that you will not be surprised. But I will propose a decision for the CEP after we listen to our distinguished colleague from Kyrgyzstan, Mr. Turarbek Kanayev, the head of International Cooperation Department from the Ministry of Natural Resources, Ecology and Technical Supervision of Kyrgyzstan. I will give you the floor. Turarbek, please, go ahead.
Благодарю, госпожа председатель. Здравствуйте, уважаемые коллеги сегодняшнего мероприятия. Во-первых, хочу выразить благодарность за организацию данного мероприятия, за теплый прием в таком прекрасном месте. Как мы все понимаем, это экологическая проблема и изменение климата на сегодняшний день является как никогда важной и актуальной. И Кыргызская республика старается максимально предпринять соответствующие действия в борьбе с изменением климата. Необходимо учесть также, что руководство нашей страны уделяет особое внимание, значение к данной проблеме экологии, к изменениям климата, и это доказывается на деле. Если позволите, я приведу несколько ключевых примеров, которые уже исполнены в течение года. Я не буду останавливаться на цифрах. Президентом нашей республики за этот год был издан 7 указов относительно природоохранных мероприятий. Во-первых, это 2022 год был объявлен годом защиты горных экосистем и климатической устойчивости, в связи с чем были внесены изменения в структуре Кабинета министров нашей страны. Именно был повышен статус природоохранного ведомства с агентства до комитета, а далее уже повышен до Министерства природных ресурсов, экологии и технологий. был образован Национальный совет по водным и земельным ресурсам при президенте, где наше министерство выступает в качестве секретариата данного координационного совета. Активно ведутся работы по внедрению и увеличению количества электромобилей, гибридных автомашин. Это связано с тем, что мы внесли изменения, то есть была аннулирована госпошлина при ввозе электромобиль, что это дало большой толчок для того, чтобы увеличить количество электромобилей. Также были отменены госпошлины при ввозе определенных комплектующих возобновляемых источников энергии, в связи с чем также активно ведутся работы по переходу населения в осенне-зимний отопительный сезон из твердого топлива в более чистые. Относительно ВИЭ также активно ведутся работы по привлечению инвестиций и масштабированию солнечных панелей. На сегодняшний день уже имеется, уже подписан двусторонний договор о строительстве 300 мегаватт с бюджетом более 200 миллионов долларов. Также ведутся работы по увеличению площадей особо охраняемых природных территорий, идут борьбы с браконьерством. Запущен проект национальный под названием Джашел Мурас, что в переводе означает «зеленое наследие», который составляет ежегодный план посадки саженцев 6 миллионов саженцев. До 30 года имеется план до 70 миллионов саженцев. Сейчас также вносится немало изменений и поправок в законодательство Кыргызской Республики по всем природоохранным мероприятиям, абсолютно всем направлениям. Это в сфере горнодобывающей части, зеленой экономики и так далее. Что касается ОРЭД, ОРЭД мы считаем очень важным документом, и он нам нужен в свете, какие изменения сейчас у нас происходят в стране, а изменения у нас очень масштабные. И по нашей инициативе было решено, что необходимо разработать уже третий ОРЭД Кыргызской Республики. Ну, конечно же, не без помощи наших экспертов. Хочу, пользуясь случаем, отдельно выразить благодарность нашим экспертам за тот вклад, который они внесли, за тот труд и время. И в связи с чем хотел бы вас, госпожа председатель, как вы ранее сказали, попросить вас об отсрочке принятия третьего ОРЭД Кыргызской Республики в связи с тем, что те рекомендации, которые были даны экспертами, они сейчас по каждому пункту разрабатываются и вносятся изменения со стороны нашей республики. Благодарю за внимание.
Thank you very much, Turabek. So as far as I understood, not only due to your intervention, but also previous exchanges we had yesterday and today, Kyrgyzstan considers that there is a need to further work on the recommendations. You also consider that there is a further need to provide the team, the EPR team, additional information because in some cases you provided not absolutely complete information and some inaccuracies were also present. And you request the CEP to postpone the adoption of recommendations to our next session. So this is, as far as I understood, the request from Kyrgyzstan. Yes? Okay.
Да, верно, вы абсолютно правильно поняли. Мы бы хотели бы запросить КЭП об отложении утверждения рекомендаций до конца года, с вашего позволения, если это можно.
Thank you very much for confirming. Well, first, I do not fear at all to suggest postponing any kind of decision. That's not what I fear. what I fear is to take bad decisions. And that is something that we should all avoid, to take bad decisions. Secondly, the EPRs are supposed to be a useful tool for the country, first for the country and then for all of us. So if the country, let me just go on and then I will give you the floor again. So if the country feels that there should be further work on the recommendations, I believe that the CEP should take this into consideration and should give the country the possibility of working further in the recommendations, because in the end, it is the country that needs to implement these recommendations. So from my point of view, it makes no sense that we adopt something that does not deserve the full agreement by the country. Of course, recommendations are difficult. I'm also not expecting that in the coming set of recommendations, because you will review the ones that are now in information paper number 17, the recommendations will be diluted in something which is not, in fact, very relevant. That's not what I hope will happen, and I'm sure that it will not happen. So what I would suggest to the CEP is that we agree to postpone the adoption of recommendations, but at the same time that we record the commitment of the country to provide this additional, accurate, complete information, I would say by the end of the year, because we are already in October. So giving you 2 months and a half, because Christmas is Christmas and the end of the year is not the best time to provide information, but at least until the end of October, until the end of November. Well, October and November will be months for the country to work further and to provide the EPR team additional information. And then I would also like that we have the commitment of the country to participate in a physical meeting of the EPR expert group. I say this because I know that we've had difficult times and we still have the COVID fear, and in the EPR expert group meeting where the recommendations were discussed, you are not able to participate physically. Well, to be very honest, I believe it's very difficult to discuss this kind of recommendations virtually. I think it's very recommendable that the country participates physically in meetings. This is the kind of discussion that I believe should be made physically and not by virtual means. And I think it's important to have the commitment of the country, because I also have to see the other part of the work. And the other part of the work has to do with the fact that the EPRs are supported mainly by extra budgetary resources. They are supported by in-kind or financial resources provided by the countries. They do not come from the core budget of the organization of UNECE. Therefore, the countries invest constructively in providing the reviewed countries the possibility of having the CPR. So we need to find here a good balance to have a good decision. So postponing, yes, that's what I would like to suggest, but at the same time, to have this commitment from the country that will give especially the donor countries, because there are a few countries here that usually are the donor countries for this exercise, but the CEP in general, the insurance that we do not approve today the recommendations, but we will approve very robust recommendations based on strong reasoning, strong arguments in the coming session. Do I have an agreement from Kyrgyzstan that we could go as I suggest? So providing information until the end of the year, robust, accurate, complete information, providing your reviews on the recommendations, your proposals on the recommendations, participating physically in the EPR expert group meeting that will discuss these recommendations? Yes. So there is a confirmation from Kyrgyzstan that you will do as such. So I would like to suggest that the CEP considers my proposal to postpone the approval of the recommendations, and that this commitment by the country is recorded in the decisions of the meeting of today. And if CP agrees, from my side, since I'm taking the responsibility of presenting this proposal, I will follow up on this and will very closely follow this process until the end. And the end will be at our next CP meeting. You will return and we will be able to adopt the recommendations for the EPR of Kyrgyzstan. Are there any requests from the floor? Switzerland, I see Switzerland. Martin, you have the
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. It's the first time I take the floor today. I would like to thank the Secretariat for the very good job done for the EPR of Albania, Azerbaijan, and also for Kyrgyzstan. My colleague Xavier was prepared actually to be the rapporteur of this EPR of Kyrgyzstan. He worked a lot of expert work also during all these months, coming to actually good recommendation. We understand your concern, and as you mentioned, Madam Chair, it is important to have a good and realistic and yes, that the country also feel comfortable to implement this recommendation. Postponing, okay, because we understand the situation, but it should not become the rule to have EPR and okay, we are coming to the CEP, but we are not ready. It's not a very good feeling for us, also the CEP members. We came here to adopt this recommendation, so we don't feel very comfortable. And since Switzerland also is a strong supporter of the program, we also finance the program and also all this EPR, so we are not very happy to go back and telling, okay, we prepared everything, but we are not coming back with a report and with recommendation. So it's not a good signal, I must say, and I really hope I understand your view, Madam Chair, that we don't have another choice actually to do so. I'm very happy that it is now in your hand, because if it is in your hand, you have even a stronger responsibility as we are, but it should really not be the rules. It was until now. We also tried to adopt this recommendation after the works that have been done. Okay, we can say we have COVID, we had these problems with meeting online, so it was perhaps not not feasible so far, but for the next time in person that we really have to adopt this recommendation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Martin. Italy, Alessandra, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I would like to join to the considerations shared with the audience by Switzerland as contributors to the EPRs and strongly believing in the value of EPRs. We are not happy for this situation. And if a delay is granted, it should be clear that it can be postponed again. So if we come up with an agreement that by a certain date we should adopt the EPR of Kyrgyzstan, Kyrgyzstan should commit to be prepared on time for this deadline. And I would also ask for a clarification because maybe I did not understand what is the procedure that you were suggesting. You suggest to hold another expert group with Kyrgyzstan, like the one that we already had with the experts online. So repeating the same expert group with Kyrgyzstan, but this time online, and then submit to the next CEP. Sorry, I did not understand. But again, I would like to stress the importance of having a timely approval of EPRs, because we carried on the mission this year, and if the approval is within the year, it is meaningful. If we delay to next year, maybe some adjustments would be needed. So I would kindly request for clarification on the procedure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Italy. Well, I think that you are both right that to accept such postponement, we need to have basic conditions met. And this is why I was suggesting a sort of a procedure. I would not say procedure. At the same time, I have to confess that understanding the reasons, especially of the donors and of colleagues that participated in the team. As you know, EPRs are difficult. To do an EPR is very difficult. It's a huge challenge, quite a lot of work. The country the reviewed country must feel that this is an added value for it, because if not, it's only a publication, and that's not at all what we want. We have had in the past, as far as I remember, one similar situation. So, in fact, it is very rare that this happens. But when it happens, we need to face it, and we need to find solutions, and solutions that are balanced, adequate solutions for the team, for UNECE, and for the country. So my proposal is that Kyrgyzstan, up to the end of the year, provides complete, accurate, robust information. Also, at the same time, Kyrgyzstan should provide their proposals with regard to recommendations. So both things. As soon as the UNECE EPR team has this information and considers that this information is sufficient, depending on the areas where the information is relevant for, because I'm sure that Kyrgyzstan will not provide information regarding all chapters, probably it's 1 or 2 or 3, then the UNECE team will see with which expert they need to meet, and an expert group meeting should be convened with the physical participation of Kyrgyzstan to address the parts of the text that should be further developed. I do not suggest that you convene the whole EPR expert group or whatever. No, the EPR team in UNECE should decide what to do. Is it only a few experts from the EPR? Whatever, you should decide, depending on what comes. I don't know what will come, so I don't take decisions in advance. You will see what comes, and then you will decide. The EPR expert group, of course, has the overseeing of this process, but I don't know what will come. So first, you will receive information, and then you will decide. My main point is that to discuss recommendations, you should be present physically. Kyrgyzstan, okay? So, and for the adoption can only happen in the coming session, the CEP coming session, which means November. I'm looking at Sal because I don't remember the date, but I think it's November 2023, right? Yeah. So 1 year and 1 month, more or less. That's the time you have. I understand that probably the EPR will need further work because you will have to update some information, but this also has happened in the past several times. and I'm sure that you will be able to do it. So additional work from all sides, but a strong commitment from Kyrgyzstan. Am I right?
Can I say some words?
Ahi, I will give first the floor to Kyrgyzstan. Kyrgyzstan, please, you have the floor.
Благодарю вас, коллеги, за понимание, за то, что вошли в нашу ситуацию. Данный вопрос рождается тем, что миссия для Кыргызстана прибыла в летний период, и, как вы сказали, по некоторым главам имеются некоторые вопросы. То есть правильно подметили то, что ОРЭД будет рассматриваться не полностью целиком, а лишь по некоторым главам, где необходимо дополнить информацию ту или иную. Естественно, Кыргызстан является приверженцем разработки ОРЭД, это безусловно, и то, что мы относимся к ОРЭД очень ответственно и подходим серьезно, как раз таки дает то, что мы просим отсрочку, а не для того, чтобы можно это было для галочки, так сказать, исполнить, да, то есть мы подходим к этому основательно, серьезно, и для этого мы просим время, чтобы мы по каждым рекомендациям, которые были даны со стороны экспертов, проработать так, как положено, потому что с этим документом в дальнейшем нам надо будет работать, и в связи с чем мы пришли к такому выводу. Еще раз вас благодарю за то, что вы относитесь с пониманием, и прошу прощения. Спасибо. Хочу удостоверить вас о том, что те ожидания, та информация, которую которые сегодня обсуждались, они будут достигнуты и исполнены до конца этого года. Спасибо.
Thank you very much. Ahi, you have the floor, please.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification from Kyrgyzstan side as well. Of course, as we worked 1.5 days with your report very precisely, and we prepared our comments beforehand. So we did in expert group quite big job already. And so I understood that you will provide some additional information concerning some chapters. You clarify some aspects in the chapters. And there were only some recommendations where you may need to analyze deeper and go ahead with your proposals. But as you know, our procedure is like that expert group, based on concrete information in chapter, should look through all recommendations and provide relevant for country, taking into account international understanding about environmental management. And of course, recommendations are sometimes difficult, but we would like to find reasonable, practical recommendations, what is possible to implement during next, say, 3 to 5 years period. Therefore, once again, I encourage you to work hard with that. And I understood that we will have a physical meeting, and the scope of meeting we will decide, but that will be especially for those chapters where you are able to provide additional information, what may change some of those recommendations. But major part of recommendations, I must say, should stay as they are right now. And we're not repeating in one performance review expert group meeting on full scale, but we focus only on those areas where you provide new information, updated information, what will give you to elaborate together with experts in our group reasonable recommendations. Thank you for that. We do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahi. As Martin said, I'm taking the responsibility of suggesting to postpone the decision. So the decision will be a decision of the CEP, but the responsibility will be mine. So pay attention to this, because it's a responsibility that I'm happy to have, but I hope that at the next CEP we will have the recommendations being adopted. And Javier from Switzerland, thank you very much for the work. I know that you were very well prepared. to present the achievements as the rapporteur, but I'm sure that at the next session you will be able to use at least part of the preparation you did for this meeting. Thank you, thank you. And thank you all for, there are a few members of the teams that did the EPRs in the room. Thank you very much for your very hard work. Congratulations to the countries, also to Kyrgyzstan, because it was already a great effort from your side to be subject to this first part of the review. And I would like to close the agenda item on the 3 EPRs and then to stay within the EPR umbrella, recalling that the CEP in our session in 2019, 24th session, adopted the current mandate in terms of reference for the expert group on EPRs. And in our special session in May this year, we requested the expert group on environmental performance reviews with support from the Secretariat to prepare a revised mandate in terms of reference to be submitted to the present session, so this session. The expert group on EPRs prepared the document ECE/CEP/S/2022/9. In the annex contains a decision on the mandate in terms of reference for the EPR expert group for 2023-2026. I would now like to invite the committee to consider for adoption the decision on the renewal of the group's mandate in terms of reference for this 4-year period. And I'm looking at you to see who wants to take the floor. I see that the European Union has already asked for the floor. Lucas, you have the floor, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. The EU and its member states express appreciation to the Environment Performance Review Programme and support its effort in helping the countries to accomplish national and environmental policy commitments. The EU and its member states see the importance of this unique programme, especially in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. The EU and its member states appreciate the conducted reviews with numerous recommendations in Kazakhstan, North Macedonia, Uzbekistan, Romania, and Morocco, and the most current reviews in Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Kyrgyzstan. We appreciate the work of the expert group on the steps towards improving the EPRs that have been taken between 2019 and 2022, for which we encourage reviewed countries' efforts for the elaboration of roadmaps of implementation. Furthermore, we suggest considering during the elaboration of future EPRs, whenever feasible and agreed upon with reviewed countries, to focus on possible means of implementation for significant recommendations. The EU and its member states confirm the readiness to continue working with other partners in this program and welcome the expert group on EPRs to continue its work in the 4th cycle of EPRs. We support further focus on the non-UNECE countries and can endorse the extension of the mandate of the expert group on EPRs till the end of 2026. Thank you.
Thank you very much, European Union. On the floor. Aha, European Eco Forum. You have the floor. Yeah.
Спасибо большое, госпожа председатель. Я прежде всего хотела выразить благодарность от имени неправительственных организаций, членов Европейского экофорума, уровнем консультаций по поводу обзоров экологической деятельности. Вот практически все обзоры, и в частности последние по Азербайджану, Армении, Кыргызстану, показали, что очень активно вовлекаются различные заинтересованные стороны, в том числе неправительственные организации, и с ними проводятся достаточно широкие консультации, и в общем, мы это воспринимаем с удовлетворением, как осуществление принципов Оргской конвенции, так и вообще признание роли, которую играют неправительственные организации. Также мы просим принять во внимание, что в некоторых странах, в которые проводились обзоры, очень сложная ситуация в природоохранной системе. Вот частые реорганизации приводят к тому, что эта система очень сильно ослаблена. Например, в Кыргызстане там произошло слияние хозяйствующих органов, контролирующих органов. Пришло очень много людей в эти природоохранные структуры, государственные. Там осталось очень мало экологов. Поэтому существует очень большая возможность в повышении потенциала вот этих существующих природоохранных органов в этих странах для того, чтобы они лучше осуществляли свою функцию. На это, наверное, нужно обратить внимание. Ну и, конечно, мы согласны с Чешской Республикой, с другими выступающими о том, что нам, наверное, нужно уделять больше внимания и помощи в осуществлении рекомендаций, которые выработаны в ходе использования такого очень важного, значит, с точки зрения инструмента, как обзор экологической деятельности. Нам кажется, это одно из достижений процесса окружающей среды для Европы, это нужно продолжать, ну и также помогать странам в осуществлении этих решений. Спасибо.
Thank you very much. We are also very happy that the EPRs are done, also taking into account a broad consultation with NGOs. We think that this is imperative. So it has been working well. I agree very much. And now I have Switzerland in my list. Martin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Switzerland is honored to be part of the EPR expert group for so many years now. The group has always strived to maintain the highest quality of the reviews and pertinence of the recommendation addressed at the country reviewed. The mandate and terms of reference proposed are fully acceptable for us, so we look forward to continuing our active engagement within the expert group in this framework. For Switzerland, the mandate and term of reference for the expert group can be adopted for the year 2023 to 2026 for next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martina. I understand your feeling. I feel honored. I'm not part of the EPR expert group, but I feel honored for having participated in so many EPRs as member of the team. And I would like to encourage colleagues to participate actively as part of the teams in EPRs. These are incredible exercises. Switzerland has been a pillar both in the EPR expert group, but also in these teams, and providing so significant financial resources, in-kind resources to the EPR. So thank you very much, Switzerland. If there are no further requests from the floor, does not seem to be the case. So I would like to invite the committee to adopt the mandate in terms of reference for the expert group on environmental performance reviews for 2023-2026, as included in the annex of the document EC/CEP/S/2022/9, and to request, of course, the Secretariat to submit it to the EC Executive Committee for approval, because as you know, it's not the CEP then it's to approve it, it's ExCom. ExCom needs to approve it, so we transmit it to ExCom. So with your agreement, that's what we will do. Thank you very much. And now I will like to invite Antoine Nunes, the Secretary to the Expert Group on EPRs, to present an overview of recent and planned activities under the EPR program. Antoine, you have up to 10 minutes. You have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Donc je vais vous présenter les activités en cours et prévues dans le cadre du programme des examens de performance environnementale. Comme nous l'avons déjà dit, la 35e session du groupe d'experts des études de performance environnementale a été organisée à Tbilissi du 12 au 16 septembre. Le groupe d'experts a finalisé avec la délégation arménienne, vous pouvez voir les photos, les recommandations de la deuxième étude de performance environnementale de l'Arménie. Et donc, nous espérons lancer, après les commentaires sur le texte principal, normalement, nous devrions lancer le lancement de la publication l'année prochaine, en 2023. Donc, pour Kirghizistan, je saute. On peut sauter là, puisque nous avons fait quand même un effort avec le groupe d'experts pour revoir les recommandations. Mais bon, aujourd'hui, donc, la décision est différente. Donc, nous verrons, normalement, ça sera lancé en 2024. De même, nous avons revu aussi le troisième examen des performances environnementales de l'Azerbaïdjan. Les recommandations ont été adoptées avec le groupe d'experts, finalisées. Et donc aussi, nous espérons lancer la publication en début 2023. Pour notre futur, dirais-je, et donc nous allons être impactés malheureusement par ce qui se passe, mais normalement, nous allons conduire l'examen de la Mauritanie. Donc, nous avons une mission préparatoire du 10 au 11 août et la mission d'examen sera du 5 au 13 décembre 2022. Le Tadjikistan a demandé un 4e examen. Normalement, nous devrions aller en novembre 2022 faire une mission préparatoire et donc la revue, normalement, devrait se faire la première partie de 2023. Monténégro aussi a demandé un nouvel examen. Nous espérons donc conséquemment faire la mission préparatoire en 2023, début 2023, et donc en automne 2023, la mission d'examen. Et la République de la Moldavie aussi a fait une demande pour le 4e examen, et donc il sera un suivant, donc ça sera la mission préparatoire en 2023, à la fin 2023, et la mission d'examen sera en 2024. Normalement, la publication du Maroc, sera finalisée normalement la semaine prochaine, et nous espérons lancer le 2e examen du Maroc à la fin du mois d'octobre, au début novembre. Donc, aussi dans la préparation du 4e cycle, nous espérons que ce sera une façon festive de le faire, donc lors de la conférence Un environnement pour l'Europe à Nicosie. Les examens du 4e cycle comprennent des options pour plusieurs liens et une meilleure intégration de plusieurs sujets en fonction des besoins des pays examinés. Et le secrétariat travaille à l'élaboration de ces options. Les options ont été marquées sur l'écran. Donc, nous aurons demain un événement en parallèle de la conférence. Vous avez le titre. Il est organisé par le Maroc, la Macédoine du Nord, l'Ouzbékistan et le Tadjikistan, qui vont présenter entre 2, 3 ou 4, suivant les pays, des projets basés sur les recommandations, de façon à les rendre opérationnels. Et donc, ça va aussi un peu répondre aux commentaires qui ont été faits précédemment pour essayer d'avoir des recommandations dans les examens qui seront, disons, mises en œuvre assez rapidement, assez facilement, bien entendu avec le support des donateurs ou le support d'autres institutions de financement. Et bien entendu, nous espérons nous invitons le Maroc pour montrer aussi qu'eux aussi sont aussi intéressés par ce processus. Alors, bien entendu, comme l'a bien rappelé notre présidente, les examens tournent avec des fonds extra-budgétaires. Nous remercions l'Autriche, la France, l'Allemagne, la Hongrie, l'Italie, le Portugal et la Suisse pour leur contribution, qu'elle soit financière, que ce soit des experts et aussi au niveau du groupe d'experts dont je vais citer après. Aussi nos partenaires UNEP et PNU et PNUD, et puis nos collègues de la Commission économique de l'Europe, qui sont nos collègues de l'environnement, de l'énergie, des statistiques et du transport. Et bien entendu, le groupe d'experts, l'Estonie, la Géorgie, l'Allemagne, l'Hongrie, l'Italie, le Monténégro, la Roumanie et la Suisse qui, la semaine, je ne me souviens pas du mois de septembre, ont dû revoir 3 pays, malgré tout, et avec 17 à 18 chapitres, chaque pays. Donc, ça a été un travail assez phénoménal de la part de nos collègues. Et nous tenons aussi à remercier la Géorgie pour nous avoir accueillis à Tbilissi. Je pense que j'ai fait le... Ah non. OK, j'ai fait le tour. Merci beaucoup. 7 minutes.
How is this competition spirit? Are there any requests from the floor? Well, it does not seem to be the case. Well, you have a very heavy agenda in front of you. Many EPRs to be conducted. As far as I understood, the EPR of Mauritania has already started with the pre-mission. Okay, good. So we continue to have EPRs outside the pan-European borders, which is positive, meaning that this is a very successful instrument, and countries outside the pan-European borders continue to ask for being subject to this process. So what I would do now is suggest a set of decisions the CEP can take on the EPRs. I would suggest that we welcome the start of the EPR of Mauritania. Also, I also suggest that we welcome the next EPRs to be conducted, which are the 4th EPRs of Tajikistan, Montenegro, and Republic of Moldova. I suggest that we thank the donor countries for financial and expertise support. And also to express appreciation to countries and organizations providing support to the expert group on EPRs itself. I would also invite, I think that the CEP should invite other countries to nominate their representatives to the expert group on EPRs. I'm sure that you understood that there's a lot of work in this group, and there are not that many participants to the expert group. So the more there are, the less work the ones that are there have, and I think that this is fair. So if you are motivated to participate in this group, please let us know. And also I think that the CEP can recall that the core secretariat of the EPR program is provided by the UNECE. However, as you know, the operational activities are dependent entirely on extra-budgetary funds provided by donors or in-kind contributions. So perhaps we could also, as always in our sessions, ask for possible additional funds. Now, on the next cycle, I think I understand that you have been discussing possible improvements to the 4th cycle, right? And I think that the CEP should be given information about these improvements, because it is the CEP that needs to decide how this will be conducted the next cycle. So perhaps you could prepare a proposal and submit it to the CEP in our next session. Should I look at Harry? Yeah, Harry. So I will wait. We will all wait for the proposal for the next cycle with the improvements that you consider should be included. I saw that you are considering to have more nexus approaches and so on. So And in our next session, which will take place in November 2023, we will discuss it. Arie, you want to take the floor? Okay, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we already started to discuss about the future, so that to analyze how we're going to follow that program, and of course the questions around of actual size and composition of report is important from one side, but from other side also what kind of actual recommendations we elaborated, that's another aspects. Because when you look on those reports, then you see that the volume of reports is very big already, more than actually 400 pages. You see also there are high number of recommendations with sub-recommendations. From time to time, we see that there is a certain overlapping with some chapters, but still important aspects we cover, and we need to find a balance and also be beneficial for country, because as was mentioned already many times, that first of all, recommendations are going for country to improve country environmental management and environmental integration into different sectors. Therefore, here the question is that in spite of that, the fact that we elaborated one survey before the fourth cycle, but maybe we need another small such a survey or short overview about concrete composition of future reports, taking into account that reports should be beneficial for country, but being at the same time maybe shorter, maybe have a smaller number of chapters, maybe have some group of recommendations like 3+3 or 3 recommendations with 3 sub-bullets or something like that. And also we need to look to recommendations and just to keep in mind that recommendations are for fulfillment. That means that if currently we see that the implementation rate is average 70, 68 or 70%, is how to improve that percentage, or can we group those recommendations in a way that some of those will be very financing oriented or bankable recommendations, some other recommendations may be more for policy improvements, so that we are able to channel those recommendations more into practice. Because one important element is certainly different national and regional workshops, and not only for this country, but also for whole region. And that is important, not only to have a clear roadmap to implement recommendation, but also to distribute and disseminate general ideas how in this region environmental situation may be improved in future. Those were the thoughts, and if that's the case, then we propose just to have that short survey, and we are able to present that to whole CEP. And so during next meeting, we will have a final, results and clear guidance in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So at our next session, we will discuss the proposal coming from the EPR expert group on the fourth cycle, improvements to be made in the fourth cycle. If there are no requests from the floor, and I don't see any, I want to thank very much our colleagues here sitting at the podium, and not only, but all the EPR expert group, and especially the EPR team in the UNECE for their amazing work. And encourage you to continue this work, this very good work. Although it's not yet 1 p.m., I don't have anything else in my foreseen for discussing in the morning session. So what I would suggest is that we break now for lunch. And we will start again at 3 in this room, but please be here sharp. And we will start with the environmental monitoring, assessment and reporting. So thank you very much for participating so constructively in our work. Thank you for the lively discussions we had. And have a good lunch. And I will see you here at 3 p.m. sharp, please, so that we can start. Please be aware that the session ends today. So everything that needs to be discussed today. Tomorrow, the conference will start. The CEP session ends today. So have a good lunch. See you later. Bye-bye.